Last week, I talked about a brand new combo deck that's come to Modern through Nardu. And the reason I focused on Nardu was that it was also making waves in CDH as well, or EDH in general, being one of the most combo-tacular commanders they've put in a good long while. But Nardu is not the only combo piece to be introduced to Modern via Modern Horizons 3. There's another new, and I mean new with inverted commas, combo deck on the scene. The reason I say new in inverted commas is that it's not that new. Storm has always existed, and Mono Red Storm has been a fringe meme for a long time, and a legacy deck using one of the cards this new deck has its name from. Ruby. Ruby Medallion is a cost reducer, a 2-mana artifact that reduces all the spells that you play, all the red spells you play, by 1. And alongside Ruby Medallion, we also have Ral Zarek, a 2-mana red creature that also reduces the cost of all your instants and sorceries by 1. Interestingly, Ruby Medallion reduces the cost of Ral Zarek by 1, making him a 1-mana cost reducer. Meanwhile, the same doesn't go the other way. This deck has got a larger metagame share than Nardu right now in Modern, perhaps because people already own some of the Storm stuff before, although a lot of this is new cards, if I'm honest, which I'll go through in a moment, but also because perhaps I think it's easier to pilot. It doesn't look like that at first, but at least on my first play with it, I found that I messed up with Nardu more, or at least kept worse hands with Nardu more. Meanwhile, with the Storm deck, I just sort of kept okay hands and killed people on turn 3. Or in some circumstances, quite easily on turn 2. This is a deck in Modern that can kill you on turn 2, which I think is where the problem lies. I'll talk more about that as we get into the video. So I'm going to talk through what the Ruby Storm deck does, and also talk through a few of my first matches with it, just to show you the power. But before we get to that, I just want to shout out Elgato, one of the sponsors of this channel and the content that I make. The video I'm recording right now is going through a 4KX, the capture device that I use to put my DSLR through my computer. There's a link in the description below to all of Elgato's gear, from their lights to their stands to the microphone tech that I use with the Wave XLR and the 4KX that I use for my DSLR into my computer. All of my content is fueled by Elgato. I swore by them before I was sponsored by them, and I swear by them now. So if you really want to level up your game, whether it be put your DSLR through a computer, have a camera up here, you can't really see it in the shot, I don't know why I've tapped it, to record or play Magic on webcam overhead with the face cam, all of these things are doable with the best gear in the industry, which is Elgato. Check out the link in the description below to help support the channel, and thanks to Elgato for sponsoring this video. Right, let's do the lowdown on this Storm deck then, shall we? I'll talk more in depth about what you're seeing on screen in a moment, which is me comboing off like an absolute madman with Mono Red Ruby Storm. And by Mono Red, I mean there are green splashes and white splashes. In essence, what you've got to understand is that these cost reducers allow you to play rituals to get mana up on what you're casting. If you have a cost reducer in play and you play any of the Pyretic or Desperate Rituals, you're paying 1 red mana for 3 red mana, which is the rate of Dark Ritual, a card that's perceived to be too good to be in Modern. Mana Morphose, on the other hand, is 1 mana for 2 mana, and it draws you a card, which means you're up on cards. The other major innovation of this deck compared to previous versions of Storm is that it's using raw card advantage, if not temporary card advantage, in all of the pulse or impulsive draw cards. Ren's Resolve from March of the Machines and Reckless Impulse from Midnight Hunt? Was that Crimson Vow? Either way, one of the sets that no one remembers. But these two cards are 2 mana to look at the top 2 cards of your library, leave them in exile, and you can play them until next turn. So you can cast them on the off turn to enable the combo turn, or you can use them on the combo turn. Think of it this way, paying 1 mana to draw 2 cards, it's not quite Ancestral Recall, but it's close and it's strong. It also plays a third version of this effect, Glimpse the Impossible, which looks 3 cards deep into exile, but they can't be played next turn. Instead, if you get to your end step and you haven't used them, it makes you some Eldrazi Scions, which nets you some blockers or some extra mana for next turn, again setting up for the combo turn. Now, casting all these spells for less is great, but the thing that Ral does is he flips over into a win condition in itself. If you cast a spell that's an instant or sorcery, you flip a coin. If you fail the flip, you take a damage. If you succeed on the flip, he transforms into Ral Leyline Prodigy, a 2 loyalty planeswalker that enters with extra loyalty counters equal to the number of instants and sorceries you've cast this turn. So basically, he has Storm for loyalty, not including your creatures, artifacts, and well, that's kind of it in your deck, really. He's important because once he flips, you can uptick him to keep that cost reduction effect if you need it. His -2 does kill a problematic creature like a Meddling Mage, for example, but ultimately you want to flip him with 6 extra counters on him, -8 him immediately, and cast any instants and sorceries you find in the top 8 cards of your library, and normally enabling you to dig deeper and find the win. The deck then looks to cast Parting Flames to replay everything in its bin, increase its storm counter, make loads of mana, and then Wish to go into the sideboard and grab grab one of its win conditions. That's right, the deck is actually not playing a single Stormspell main deck, instead playing Empty the Warrens and Grape Shot in your sideboard for you to go and grab with Wish and kill people. Beyond that, there's an interesting sideboard tech in Alchemist's Gambit, a card that allows you to cast it, go to your next turn where damage can't be prevented, and then kill someone through the One Ring protection. I think that's a really neat bit of tech for a deck that only needs one big turn to kill you, and that turn is often turns 2, 3, or 4. And there's just more Modern Horizons 3 cards in the sideboard too. Orim's Chant allows you to disable counter spells on your combo turn, or disable the opposing combo deck for a turn for you to untap and win. Static Prison is just a 1 mana clean answer, temporarily at least, for some sort of problematic permanent, a Trinisphere, a Meddling Mage, a Thalia, or similar. It removes a lot of things temporarily, but you don't need a lot of time with this deck. 1 or 2 turns is enough. And then Flage is your like transformational anti-aggro card that won me a load of games because it's actually very easy to cast it and escape it in the same turn because this deck is nuts. I genuinely believe this deck is wildly silly. Let me talk you through some games and then we'll finish off with some final thoughts. In our first game, we're up against Nadu and we're on the play. We cast a Ruby on turn 2, untap and cast a Ral for 1 mana on turn 3, and then we Ritual. Our opponent fetches, surveils, and F6 is saying go off if you can. We decide not to continue the Ritual here, instead casting Valakut's Awakening, and we flip our Ral, which has 2 bonus counters on it. Because we flip successfully, we cycle both of the Rituals and we brick, drawing 3 lands. So we pass back to our opponent and we clench our arseholes tight and hope our opponent doesn't have a Nadu, because they probably will if they do, like 2 ships passing in the night. They brick and they pass back. We both got unlucky on our turn 3s. We untap and draw Wish, which means we're off to the races. We shoot them for 2 with Ral and realize it doesn't draw a card because we don't have a blue permanent in place. That was a punt. We Wish for 1 singular mana and we get Past in Flames and cast it for 2 mana. We cast a Ritual for 1 red, generating 3. Then we Awakening for 1 mana to cycle our hand and draw 1 additional card, and we hit just pure gas. We look at our hand, sideboard, and graveyard and kind of ignore our opponent's board now because it just doesn't matter. We can see the code of the Matrix. We cast Strike it Rich, which is mana neutral. We flip Ral with 8 counters on him, ready to ultimate. We ult him. We start to cast multiple Rituals from Exile Zone for free, thanks to the ultimate, generating mana and filling out our yard. Then we cast some more Impulsive Draw. We cast a Past in Flames again to go again with each of the Rituals that's in our bin, including Manamorphose, which not only is a Ritual, but it draws a card as well. And our opponent's seen enough. They scoop it up. They don't want to see anymore. Turn 4 win, but we got unlucky and whiffed on turn 3. And our opponent also got unlucky and did the same. In game 2, our opponent has a Soulless Jailer, which turns off almost all of our card advantage engines in the deck, except interestingly it doesn't affect Wish, because Wish doesn't cast from exile. We stick a Ruby, then a Ral, then we have 3 mana ups. We absolutely have to be aware of an Endurance bricking us if we go down some sort of Past in Flames route with our graveyard. So that's if we deal with the Jailer too. On turn 3, I cast a 1 mana Ral and then Metamorphose for information about whether or not we can go off here. My thoughts are we might just need to double flip our Rals to do 4 damage total to clear the Jailer and go off later. We can trip into a sideboard piece of Static Prison. This allows us to remove the Jailer. We still have to play around Endurance though, as they have the mana up. So we cast a load of Rituals and wish into Galvanic Relay to enable our next turn. Relay puts a load of gas into the Exile Zone ready for next turn that can't be cast this turn. However, this does allow us to flip our Ral and we get to try and pop off this turn in spite of all of this. Ral ultimates, we cast another Ral, we proceed to go to Magical Christmas Land, spewing value from the Exile Zone, and we flip the second Ral, which now has something like 11 fucking counters on it. We don't ult him though, because we might need him post first attempt at going off or next turn. So instead we do cast Past in Flames to basically just check to see if they've got Endurance, and if they don't, the game is over, and if they do, we continue with a second Ral ultimate. We Past in Flames, Ritual a billion times, and Grape Shot them for 29. Turns out they were bluffing with Endurance, which was correct for them to do so, and they go for a meme of summoning, pacting for it, and then just losing on the spot. Now, this might all seem quite uninteractive, 2 ships passing. Well, other rounds weren't quite like this. In round 2, for example, I lost a Force of Negation and I flipped Tamiyo and Flames of Anor. Really hard, like not even remotely close. Turns out that the way to beat Modern Horizons 3 combo cards, or combo decks, is with other Modern Horizons cards like Force of Negation, Tamiyo, and Flames of Anor, because Lord of the Rings is basically a Horizon set, let's be real. Although, to be fair, Tamiyo flipped and was given them back a counter spell each turn, so I did technically lose to the recurring casting of a card that's over 20 20 years old. Humans had a really interesting game one against me. They make a meddling mage naming Wish, which means I can't win. Both of the win conditions are in the sideboard of the deck. So surgical and meddling mage effects seem good against this deck. We flip around on turn 3 and look to shoot the mage dead to enable us, but they violin a Sylvan Safekeeper of all things, sack a land, target the mage, give it Shroud, protect it, and I never financially recover from this. In game 2, they take me to 5 life with minimal disruption, and I just storm off, remove their Mariner with a sideboard bit of tech, and then Grape Shot them to death. In game 3 is another meddling mage with protection, so on turn 3 we double Lightning Helix them by casting and escaping our Flage in the same turn, and then win through Titan Beatdown that they just cannot race. In the next round we just turn 3 combo kill burn. In game 2 they stick an Eidolon on the play, we storm off, flip around, kill it, going to 7, and we make some Eldrazi blockers too, so we're pretty clean. However, double Boros Charm, you know, that's 4 damage each, that adds up to 8, that's more than a life total, we die. Game 3 we go to 1 life, then we combo our graveyard full on turn 4 and Flage an attacker to go to 4, but we don't crit enough red and white mana, and we clench hoping for minimal direct damage from them. They cast a Harsh Mentor, which turns off the second white source in my hand, so they're sitting pretty that we can't escape the Flage. Except I had a Metamorphosis that I couldn't cast at the end of last turn, so I used it to filter into double white and kill the Mentor with a Flage. We're on 6, they have 1 card in hand after playing a land, they swing, we block, and they scoop it up because they didn't have 2 instances of 3 damage like they did in the last game. Flage is pretty good against burn, who would have thought it? Round 5, our opponent surveils a Ruby into the bin, telling us it's the mirror. We untap on the play on turn 2 and just combo kill them. We begin with a ritual into 3 mana, cast the cost reducer for 2 of it, then use the final mana to cast another ritual, then we find Past in Flames off of a draw from the Metamorphose, and just unload, redoubling everything from our graveyard with Past in Flames, and then playing around, flipping him and ultimating him. Game 2, we could try the same thing, but we don't have a post-reduction ritual to do the ritual reducer ritual line. We pass back to them on turn 3, and they kill us with Orim's Chant backup, something we never drew that game. In game 3, we keep a hand I should not have. I think milling to 5 is better because sometimes your 5s just kill people on turn 2 and 3. Our hand doesn't do anything and our opponent sets up a turn 4 kill. They go slow, but we're going slower. I definitely kept a bad hand, which shows there is skill involved with this deck. It's not easy mode wins like, say, Hogak used to be. Ultimately, I'm not sure if I like a turn 2 combo deck in the format. The fact that it goes off so quickly means a lot of interaction like Trinisphere or Dampening Sphere or even Tharlies and Meddling Mages can end up being a little bit too slow when you're on the play. There are other effects you can use, Soul Guide Lanterns, Deafening Silence. They're similar like 1-drop spells, Counterspell, Spell Pierce, Flusterstorm. There are answers. I'm not saying the deck is unbeatable, but it seems quite consistently fast and powerful to the point that a lot of the cards that traditionally hit out Storm probably are a little bit too slow against some of the draws. I felt like I was playing a legacy deck. It felt like sometimes that I was playing with or against a legacy deck when I play against the deck itself in the mirror. I don't know if that's a good thing for Modern. The Pro Tour is this weekend, so I'll see if this deck is the rising star that I'm kind of predicting it to be. I actually think it's more powerful than Nadu, just by virtue of being faster, and thus getting around people getting their disruption online or the disruptive pieces from cantripping or casting them off even their mana when you die on turn 2. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know if you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. And don't forget, if you want to buy some gear to improve your gaming or content platform, Elgato's the company for you. Check out the link in the description below. I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.